And I'm a single mum to an 8-month-old baby who is not getting back to sleep easily in the middle of the night.
Welcome to Late Night Notes, the parenting podcast that answers the questions keeping you up at night so you can rest a little easier. I'm your host, journalist, author and mum of 4, Madeleine Grummet. In every episode, I'm joined by an after-hours expert to unpack a late night note based on families' real experiences. We're here to give you trusted answers, practical tips and a whole lot of support so you can rest a little easier. Tonight's episode is all about that age-old middle-of-the-night question, why won't my baby go back to sleep? Well, we've got some answers for you. We'll be getting into what's really behind those sleep changes that can crop up at 6 to 12 months, plus plenty of ideas for what you can do to help them feel settled enough to get back to sleep. And we're going to talk about your sleep, because when you're feeling rested, you'll feel more able to care for your baby. But first, let's have a listen to tonight's Late Night Note.
Hi there, my name's Tien and I'm a single mum to an 8-month-old baby who is not getting back to sleep easily in the middle of the night. I used to be able to settle her back to sleep just by giving her a feed or rocking her in my arms, and then she'd be fine to sleep in her cot once I popped her in there. But now she's a bit older, I feel like she's waking up more often and doesn't like being put back down in her cot. She cries every time I try, so I end up rocking her back to sleep, but it takes ages until she's really asleep and I can put her back down. And it's just getting exhausting because it's just me in the middle of the night. You know, there's so much advice online about taking it in shifts with your partner, which just isn't my reality. And on top of that, I'm just a bit overwhelmed by all the information online about what to do to help your baby sleep. So I just want to understand what I can do to help her feel okay sleeping in her cot again and get my sleep back again too.
Gosh, sleep. It's got to be the most dramatic change you go through as a new parent. And just when you feel like you've found your groove with your baby, it can change again. Well, to help us unpack tonight's late night note, I couldn't think of a better after-hours expert to call in than Professor Harriet Hiscock. She's a consultant paediatrician with over 20 years of experience as a champion for kids' wellbeing and works with Australia's leading children's hospitals and research centres. And to top that all off, she's a leading sleep specialist who's helped countless families navigate the wide world of sleep. Welcome, Harriet. What are your first thoughts when you listen to this note?
Oh, look, this is such a common thing that happens, particularly for babies aged 6 to 12 months. And there's a few reasons for this, because babies at this stage, it's a normal developmental step, almost learn to keep themselves awake when they wake up overnight.
Why is that? What's happening for the baby?
Yeah, so they're developing something called object permanence. And that means that you are now permanent in their mind. You are no longer out of sight, out of mind. So they wake up overnight, which is normal and natural, and they just can't get themselves back to sleep because they know you're around and they're going to call out and signal for you.
And so also at this time, we know it's a very exciting time for the child's development. They're learning to crawl, perhaps even pull to standing. How do these things then impact their ability to settle?
Yeah, so we often see that starting to crawl, pulling to stand coincides with waking up again a lot overnight. And then the other normal developmental stage is that babies start to develop separation anxiety. So you can almost think about if they're really calling out at night, maybe it's because they're really attached to you and that's bonded well with you and that's a fantastic thing. But it does make it a bit challenging for their sleep and your sleep as well.
And so separation anxiety, what are some of the signs that we might see of that?
Yeah, so it's when you leave the room that they do start crying and they do start getting distressed. And some babies will do that but then can calm themselves down, but others might need a little bit of your help and support to do so.
For children this age, we know that overtiredness, well, for us all, when we're overtired, it's difficult to control our behaviour. Is overtiredness a factor for children?
Oh, absolutely. So if they get overtired, it's really hard for babies to get themselves to sleep, and they're often more likely to wake up overnight. And the other big factor is illness. So in this first year of life, babies might have 7, 8, 9, 10 viral infections. And
I remember that stage very well with my own children, yes, the relentless roll of viruses through the years.
Exactly, and myself too. And that almost always is associated with sleep problems. And if a baby might have been really sleeping and settling well, but now they've got sick, and so they're waking up in the middle of the night and they need your help.
And that can be frustrating for parents when you feel like you're in a pattern and then things change again. But of course, this is all just part of the changing
Typical, normal
developmental
parenting
stages. Exactly. So when we think about the different settling methods for young children, can you tell us a bit about responsive settling?
Yeah, so responsive settling is a term that you settle your baby in response to their sort of cues and behaviours. So obviously if your baby's really upset, you would have them in your arms, cuddling them, rocking them. And then if they're starting to calm down and get a little bit quieter, you might then look at transferring them to the cot.
And just unpacking a little bit those sorts of behaviours, what are some of the things that you would usually see your baby doing when they are unsettled and you want to use this method?
Yeah, you might see them certainly beginning sort of things of frowning, then grizzling and then crying, and really amping up that crying, which can be really, distressing, but it's usually a sign that they will need some of your help to calm and down and settle. And when they respond to that and they're getting calmer, then you can start to put them in the cot.
All right, so you're really responding to what your baby's telling you about what they need
Exactly.
at that time. And so what about this technique, hands-on settling? Can you tell us a little bit about how that works and what are the steps that a parent could take to use that?
Yeah, so this is something that we do in the cot, and it's really picking a technique that helps your baby calm and settle. And that might be a different technique for different babies. So for some babies, it might just be stroking their forehead, or it might be tapping them. Or it might be, I've seen some parents put a hand on their baby's bottom and on the shoulder and gently turn them on the side and rock them. So it's just choosing a technique that helps your baby calm and settle and doing one thing at a time. So you need to do it for a few minutes. Don't go pat, 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 rock, 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 stroke, 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 because your baby's going to get really confused.
That's a symphony going on right there, isn't it?
Yep.
What about in terms of patting? How quickly should you pat them?
Yeah, so pat at a nice slow rate. Don't pat at your heart rate, which often is like that. Slow it right down, because what you're trying to do is help your baby settle in their cot. And ideally, you would do it until they're drowsy, but not completely asleep. And then you would head out of the room to give them a chance to settle by themselves.
Right, which is what we're all going for. And so acknowledging, though, that during this time, babies can be unsettled still and there might be a lot of crying, what would you suggest then if you have got a baby that's really struggling to settle? How does a parent manage their own frustration, and what would you suggest to parents as advice to manage themselves in that moment?
This is a really great question, because I think a lot of parents feel this way but don't often talk about it. But the first thing is to walk away. Leave your baby in a safe place like the cot with the cot side pulled up. Walk away, give yourself a few minutes. This might be also a time to call one of the many parent lines and helplines that are available 24/7 to help parents in this exact situation.
And when we think back again to our caller, Tian, what kind of technique would you suggest to her? She's a single mother, she's really overwhelmed and struggling. What would you suggest to her? What's the best kind of hands-on settling technique?
Yeah, so it's the one that she finds suits her and her baby, whether that is the stroking or the patting or the rocking, trying it for a few minutes before switching, and then withdrawing that, slowing down the patting, slowly stepping away once she can see her baby's calm and the crying is coming down, because that's a sign that your baby's probably heading off to sleep.
And hopefully both of you then are learning to unwind at the end of the day.
Exactly. So look, I think in addition to the, things we've talked about, I think she needs to prioritise her sleep as well, because doing so will enable her to really help her child's development and health and well-being in sleep. So that's important. And the practical side of that is, once your baby is down at the start of the night, perhaps don't run around the house doing all your household chores. Leave them till the next day. Go to bed yourself and get some sleep, because it might be that in a few hours, later, you're going to have to be up again and helping your baby to resettle.
Well, we know that me time is incredibly important, and it's rare as a parent to get that, but that to really just restore and have that chance to rest yourself, as you say, when your child is resting. And so if we think about the importance of parent and carer sleep, we know it's great for well-being and for restoring. How do we also look at where parents can get support? For example, where would they go to get additional support?
Look, there's a lot of websites out there which have good evidence-based supports and tips and tricks to try. There's also your local child and family nurse in states and territories. There's also a number of phone call helplines, the parent line, for example, your general practitioner and your paediatrician. All of these people have skills and supports that you can access. And I think don't forget the practical stuff. Shop online for your grocery shopping if you need to. accept offers from help, from families and friends, because often we think we have to do this on our own, but we would help someone who is struggling in the same situation. So it's fine to go and ask for that help.
Absolutely. I remember bringing up
Yep.
my kids and friends, family, neighbours, anyone who offered the smallest thing.
Yes.
Say yes.
Yes,
Because it
exactly.
can make a huge difference
Yep.
to what you're trying to achieve as a parent. Thank you so much, Harriet, for sharing all of your wisdom with us tonight. Have you got any final parting tips or words for the parents listening out there?
Yes, Madeline. I think, remember this is developmental often, why your baby's waking up again. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And I think permission, if these settling techniques haven't worked tonight, it's okay. Pick your baby up, give them a cuddle and try again next time.
Fantastic. Thanks again. Wow, so many great insights from Harriet tonight. So what have we learned about sleep changes and settling? Here's tonight's notes. First up, those sleep changes your baby might be going through at 6 to 12 months, they're actually a sign your baby's developing, becoming more aware of their world and learning new skills. When it comes to settling your baby, it's important to respond to their needs and choose a way that works for both of you. Try to be consistent. It's okay if you need to do something a bit differently every now and then. Life happens. And finally, know that so many of us parents get through ups and downs with the help of friends, family, or health professionals. It's totally normal to ask for help, and especially if you're parenting solo. As always, we've got plenty of handy links in the show notes so you can learn more about sleep and settling and to know where you can find the support that you need. Check out our other episodes for more deep dives into those big parenting questions. And tonight, I hope that you can rest a little easier.